Call you. Just. All right, it's nice to be back for another Wednesday. Glad to see people are kind of gaining health. It looked like we had visitors too, at least that I saw on Sunday. So that was always good to see. Well, hopefully people still are watching at home. That's why, I asked my dad tonight if he's going to his church or just going to watch us. So he decided that he's going to go on to Conway. But I told him I'd give him a shout out, so he'd have to acknowledge it. But what we've been studying was Matthew, Sermon on the Mount. Then we kind of went to talk about things we couldn't control, and had a lesson a couple weeks ago. And then next week, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to have a meeting on Wednesday. So we'll be off that time. So everybody hopefully here is probably familiar. If not, this is always a good place to start on the Sermon on the Mount on Matthew 5. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and say a word of prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be here tonight, and we ask you to be with us that we may take your word as you would have us read it and acknowledge it and take your wisdom and apply it to our daily lives. And may we say things that are only of truth that you've given us, and help us in investigate it further so we may be better students and we can also be good examples towards each other. We ask you to continue to be with those who may not can be with us tonight for various reasons. We ask you to please continue to help us edify one another as we have a discussion according to your word and according to what we need to do as Christians to better ourselves and bring those who are not Christians and also those who have gone away. We ask you these things in good faith. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Well, if we want to go ahead, and like I said, Matthew 5, and before we kind of already start, I wanted to read something here, and this is like your hook. What does this mean? Can anybody tell me what this means? Everybody see that? Fingers crossed? Okay. There's a couple meanings that I looked up. And again, internet, it could be, who knows these days, people literally twist things around. Okay? But tell me, can y'all tell me what the meaning of it? What's one meaning of it? Lori, you know what one meaning would be when somebody fingers crossed? Like, say if kids.
Yes. You're not going to necessarily be telling the truth.
Right.
Or the whole truth.
Right. Usually kids will do that. Okay? So it's like, oh, I thought you didn't say you didn't have that ball. Well, fingers were crossed. Okay? So that would be one example. Another example is, I hope you get this job. Fingers crossed, right? So, again, another example. So, I looked it up because I was curious and wanted to see the origin. Okay, it's a hand gesture commonly used to wish for luck, but also it has been used for children to tell a white lie. Actually, they have here that the origin, believe it or not, maybe you knew this, was the act of crossing one's fingers mainly belonged to Christianity in the early times. The earliest use of gesture had two people crossing their index fingers to form a cross. So I did not know that. So the origin, courts of the Mosaic law would often render verdicts with the phrase, "May God have mercy upon your soul," to reaffirm God's supreme authority over the law. Most judges felt that while they could pass a sentence of death upon a person, they personally did not have the authority to destroy souls, and that only God had the authority to do that. As a result, some judges, again, this is according to this, you can take it with a grain of salt. I just thought it was a good story. Some judges would cross their fingers whenever they said the phrase as a result of concern for the criminal's soul, as they said it as a prayer. It is also believed that in the early days of Christianity, people used to signal their belief to others. So that's interesting, and that's kind of going to lead in what we're going to talk about, is talk about truths, talk about Christianity, and we're going to go in Matthew 5 33 through 37. That means should be a Matthew 5 in front of there. So if you want to follow along, we're starting in verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by earth, for it is His footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black, but let your yes be yes, and your no be no, for whatever is more than these is from the evil one. Okay, so we're going to dissect that maybe a little bit more than you want to, but in this day and time, I mean, I don't know everybody's soul, I don't know everybody's heart. I take them as a pure heart, especially everybody here. That's why you're here, because you want to be a better person. I do have experience in the world, and some of you have had experience, whether it be at work or classrooms, and I'm trying to, protect. But I remember when I was a kid, you might have told that lie. You might have had a kid in your class told they've done their homework and they haven't. And it seems like it's more. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's kind of like when my dad was my age, he would say the same thing about the younger generation. Maybe that's the tendency. So I think that's true because and again, that's my opinion, because nothing new is under the sun, and that's why the Bible is so applicable. And let's see if we can apply this and see if we can help, especially these young and adults too, but young people who seem to maybe have a habit of lying because maybe their background, because we know it's important to have a stable home life, to make sure that they follow God's law. We as parents or as examples follow God's law. So let's go dive in and see what they're saying here. Going into the first verse that we read, it says, get right here. Okay, it first says, again you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. Okay, so the exact words are not found anywhere, exact words I said, in the Old Testament, but if you look at Leviticus 19:12, it says, and you shall not swear by my name falsely, nor shall you profane the name of God. And that seems to be a tendency too we hear maybe more of, at least in the classroom I'm in. If you look at Numbers 30, verse 2, if a man makes a vow to the Lord or swears an oath to bind himself by some agreement, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. So again, Jesus, of course, knows the old law. He's presenting the new law here. He's the perfection. So as we look at this, again, we know, okay, yeah, you should. Sounds like to me, I mean, what are they saying there? I know what it sounds like to me, but somebody have a comment. And you shall not swear by my name falsely, nor you profane the name of God. Anybody have an answer to that? What are they saying? Is it just simple as I see it? Because the Pharisees saw it differently. What is this meaning? Okay. Well, let's find out. Let's look on. Okay. This is according to Paul Earnhardt, again, where I got a lot of this information from. He said the law's approach to oaths was similar to the approach of divorce. The Mosaic covenant did not ordain divorce, but sought to regulate and restrain what was already prevalent. The law did not originate oaths or command Israel to swear by, but directed that any oaths taken should be by the name of God and must not be false. So again, you're looking back, you already said, you had past verses, Jesus already said divorce isn't good. That wasn't the original plan. Okay? Your hearts were hardened, and that's the reason that Moses gave you that. Now, the same thing, they're trying to regulate. So evidently, in this day and time, just like maybe similar to this day and time, there was a problem when people took oaths and they would create this loophole of, well, since I wasn't swearing to God, it didn't count. And we'll talk about that in a second. If you look at Deuteronomy 6:13, it says, "You shall fear the Lord your God and serve Him and take oaths in His name." So again, this was the Old Covenant. You'll see several things in Deuteronomy 6 there about the Old Covenant. So let's kind of explore, why is this first verse, why is Jesus talking about this? Again, He talked about divorce, and He said, He straightened them out on that. He is, and what He's doing here, if you think about just like He did in other topics He brought up, He's going to talk about the Spirit. He's going to talk about what you need to do, how to perfect it. Okay? So, talking about the Pharisees, they saw a loophole for deceit. They were not concerned with constant truthfulness. Okay, so here was their tradition. I'll post it up there. Don't perjure yourself when the name of God is involved. Okay? So think about that right now. Does that sound like a partial truth to you? Okay, so again, he is going at the Pharisees, and we're about to read about the Pharisees exclusively here in a second, and then just kind of put in place. We learned a couple weeks ago when we talked about Job, when God was saying, I don't think you made the waters run, or made the things on the earth and named them. He kind of put Job in his place. I'd say he did put Job in his place. But now he's going to, again, call out the Pharisees. And the reason we know this, let's look at Matthew 23. If you'll turn over there. And we'll read that, and then we'll go back to Matthew 5. But if you go to Matthew 23, just flip over a few pages. Jesus characterizes the Pharisees, what my heading says. And if you look there, then Jesus spoke to the multitudes and to His disciples, starting verse 1. The scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do, but do not do according to their works, for they say and do not do. For they bind heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do to be seen by men. They make their Pharisees, or somebody say that for me. Phalasteries. Okay, that's always a hard one for me to say. Okay. Broad and enlarge the borders of their garment. They love the best places at feasts, the best seats in the synagogue, God, greeting in the marketplace, and to be called by men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But you do not be called Rabbi, for one is your teacher, the Christ, and you are all brethren. And do not be called teachers, for one is your teacher, the Christ. But he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whoever exalts him will be abased, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. So he goes on, and I'll just read the first verse, but he goes on and several times here on verse 13. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut up the kingdom of heaven against men, for you neither go in yourselves, nor do you allow those who are entering to go in. So right there, didn't these Pharisees take oaths? Didn't they say to do something, but were they doing it? So thus, hypocrites, and you see that it's almost Pharisee and hypocrite is like a synonym. So they found this loophole. So since, again, they're the position and power, what were the Pharisees in charge of again? What were they in charge of? What were they supposed to do? They're relaying, weren't they the people that say, oh, this is what you're supposed to be doing, right? Talking to the people. So, but they themselves weren't practicing what they preach. So Jesus addresses this in Matthew 23, and you can continue to read on and addressing all the things that they were in the wrong about and pretty much lying about. So they could avoid perjury as they define it. Well, I said that, but I wasn't. That wasn't under what God said. So again, what is the point of all this? The point is they had no commitment to honesty, truthfulness, and neighborly love. Again, he's talking about their hearts, and also actions do speak loud, but again, they were sinning in their hearts, and they knew it. And maybe sometimes, think about this. All right, if anybody can give some biblical examples, I'm open floor. But what happens if somebody lies once or tells themselves a lie? What usually has to happen when somebody asks them about it? You got to get another lie over that lie. Okay, and it could be continuous. Okay, there's shows on TV about, about this. They'll always have like a 20/20 or something like that, talking about this husband or this girlfriend or somebody who was living a double life. I mean, I can't imagine that. But just, when did that start? Did they go in with that intention? I mean, did the Pharisees go in with the intention of, okay, we're going to do this? Or did it start with something little and just became bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden Jesus comes and said, listen, what has happened here? Okay, but think about how it starts, and going back to our children too, about the truth. If a white lie is okay, well, what if they tell another one, cover that one? Okay, and who do they see that from? Where do they learn that example? So when we see those 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, I mean, they might know, nobody will ever know. Coach, I'm late for practice because my car broke down. That might be true. We may never know. Okay, but there's been times, as people, we know that wasn't the case. Because somebody saw that car over at Mary Lou's house. Okay, and that's... I gotta look over there. That happened one time to one of my baseball players. He skipped practice, but he said he was sick, but he wasn't sick. So, just things of that. But again, we've got to, going back to the point, we've got to be the example. And when your children or whoever you're under, yourself, you've got to make them accountable. Because a lot of times they keep getting away with it. And again, the scary part is sometimes people can live a lie and nobody will find out. But we know who is watching constantly. Yes?
I think in the modern setting, in the church especially, that these kind of things do happen from time to time, where we're looking for a loophole, where we're looking for a scenario that would leave us where we're still okay. What I'm thinking of is just one example that comes to my mind is alcohol. Mm-hmm. That we can, wasn't really drunk. I mean, legally I don't think, or we try to justify some of our actions by looking for a loophole in the truth, right, rather than looking at the concept, right, and seeing the bigger picture, and going back to the point you made about just honesty and integrity and truthfulness.
Right. I mean, it's easy. I mean, would you say rationalizing that can be a lie to yourself?
I mean, it wasn't actually adultery, but, we kind of...
Well, when we have like in Proverbs, we're not supposed to go around that corner where adultery lies in wait. So that's again, why do we put ourselves in that situation where something could happen? That goes to there, or we might feel, we have to, well, I shouldn't say, where I was, because then I might get in trouble. Then we might need to analyze that a little bit. Okay, so that's a good point. Anything else? All right, well, let's go on to that next verse. Again, it sounds simple, but it's amazing how many people have trouble with it. So if we look at Matthew 34 through 36, Matthew 5, but I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king, nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. Okay, I might have heard that verse 40 plus years, every year at least. But how do we apply it? What does that mean? It just means what it says. We did something today. I always hate to do this, but because I always hear other people do it and say, well, why is he talking about his job? But we were learning Bill of Rights. Well, we said they had freedom of religion, but they didn't know what that meant. They had to interpret that and learn, well, that means you can go to church where you want to, and you can not worship if you don't want to. The government's not going to get involved. But it's amazing how many people comprehension. So what does this mean? But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it's God's throne, nor by earth, for it's his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. Help me out here. I got something, but help me out. Go ahead.
First thing I think of is swearing in general.
Okay.
People use profanity today in
Okay.
general, and I'm just generally
Yeah.
speaking,
Uh-huh.
to try to intensify their message. Whatever they're saying, if they throw a few curse words in there with it, it's really big. You know?
Right.
Now, you bring it down to a more realistic picture of an audience like this.
Yeah.
You know, it may not be that, but we use words to emphasize that, hey, I'm really serious, or it's putting on the extra adjective or adverb to make it have greater meaning.
Right.
I think is what we're guilty of too.
Right, and maybe that was the origin of what the Jews or Pharisees were feeling there. They said, well, I just want to make sure people know. And there is some little, I want to make sure I emphasize this. And then it became something else.
Where I see it today, I see it with kids, but I see it with adults too. They'll say, I'm not going to lie, but this is the way something was. And I'm thinking,
right.
well, so earlier you might have been lying, but you're not lying now is what you're really saying. But
Right.
that expression, I'm not going to lie. You
Yeah.
know, I stayed up late last night.
Right.
Well, when are you lying? You know, that mentality. And I think we could fall into that kind of trap eventually, or some of our
Sure.
youngsters could, or something where, you know, your words kind of matter.
Right. Well, let's think about this. So if we look up here, and that's good. I mean, yeah, and definitely, you know, profanity for emphasis, swearing, but let's think about this. The evil which Jesus attacks in his prohibition of swearing is not oaths, but deception. He sweeps the vain oaths of the Pharisees, again, remember who his audience is, with deceitful subtleties by observing that here or there, I should say, there is nothing which they might swear that has not been tied directly to God and his power. So think about it. They could swear to Jerusalem. They could swear to the heavens. They could swear to that pew. Who's created all this? God. So that kind of leads in to what our last verse is going, but that's what he's saying there. Nor by the earth, for it's his footstool, nor by Jerusalem. Yeah, and that goes to say too, I mean, there's no reason to swear. He's telling you not to swear because God is the one who is, He knows your heart. He is the one that's looking over you right now, and He's created all. He is made, do you not think that's why He said, because you cannot make one hair white or one hair black? So it's something, again, humbling, like Job. I still think of Job, how humbling that was when God was saying all the things that he's done. What have you done? But again, the truth, not an oath, truth. And again, that goes in what we're saying. If we look at Matthew 5:34 and 36, we just read, but we'll look at 16:22. 16:22. It says, it's a revelation of Jesus' death. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, Far be it from you, Lord, this shall not happen to you. So 23 says, But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men. Wow, that's pretty powerful right there. I don't know. My personality is, you would hope if you're in that situation that you wouldn't question. You know, if you're in Job's situation or if you're in Peter's situation, I mean, that's amazing. But again, we're in situations sometimes because Satan knows our weaknesses and he's going to attack our weaknesses, and he might put us in a situation where we have a chance to get in trouble and tell the truth, like maybe when we were a kid, or try to get away with it, still be in trouble with God. I still think about, I've told Ryder this, I remember I was asked, started to rain, I was playing inside, my mom and dad were there, and I just had a brand new tent outside, put it up on the hill. It started raining, and I said, "Can you get that tent in?" And guess what? What'd I say? "Oh, I did." And of course, I didn't. Was I thinking of the consequence right then? But I thought, well, if I told them that I did, they might not look at it and I can get away with it. Maybe to the next day, then I'll take it down. But it was right there to see. And of course, that's probably, I don't know, I was probably 8 or 9 years old. But I remembered that I shouldn't tell a lie, because sure enough, they were very good about correcting me. And so we think about that. If we could could be an influence to those when, make those children be accountable, because that's where it starts. That's what those habits start. So once we start something, it's hard to get out of a bad habit. And the good part about it's hard to get out of good habits. So going on through these verses, let's ask this question. What truth is the Lord stressing when we talk about going back to 34, 36? We talked about a little bit. What truth is He stressing? Okay, is He stressing, well, it's okay to tell the truth sometime, or we're always to be honest, right? Because we're not, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, because, in verse 33 too, and then we're going to go in verse 37. Let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. But God knows all, so why even waste your time on trying to get around the truth when you know that someone above is going to make you accountable? And it's because sometimes you're not going to be held accountable. All right, and let's talk about 36 and 37. We'll read that again. But I say to you that for every idle word, this is Matthew 12. Let's get to Matthew 12. So if you want to turn over there to Matthew 12, talking about the truth. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. You may be fooling us here on earth. I may be fooling myself. But there's no fooling God. And that's always important to pray for wisdom, because just like we heard Peter, get behind me, Satan. Don't speak man's word. What God's made so, that's what's going to happen. All right, let's talk about yes and no. Matthew 5:37, back to Matthew 5. But let your yes be yes and your no be no, for whatever is more than these is from the evil one. So a simple, emphatic yes or no puts people under no less obligation to tell the truth and honor their promises than the most stringent oath. Okay, and there's been I remember my mom and dad talking, my granddad talking about it, and again, this could go into opinions, so you just go ahead and read the Scriptures, and we can discuss it through Scriptures to make, because they can't put every scenario, like you've ever had a case book, so everybody's seen a case book before, like there's rules, and like you've got court cases, and then always could look at a situation like what happened in a classroom. You could look at the case that came up that happened, but you think about it, there's so many cases, but you have a guide right here, and then God is giving you that judgment of making good decisions or not. So sometimes, we have to make tough decisions, but long as we follow our guide, it's going to it's going to be the right decision. And we need to ask for that wisdom of God, what He thinks He would do, not what man would do. So, going back to what I was saying, it's kind of, I guess, was controversial. I don't know if it is now. People may feel differently. And I just bring it up because I've heard it through the church before. It's like, well, I'm not going to go swear under oath when I go to a courtroom because I'm going to tell the truth no matter what. And you know, that can be debated. There's some verses you can look up with that, and their basis is, well, I don't have to swear because I'm told not to swear. And again, that's something to think about. And if anybody wants to comment on that, they can. I'm just going to leave it at that. So that's something to think about. And if you have any questions about that, that's why we have some great elders, okay, and a good preacher, and some people who have studied the Word. And if you have to come to that decision, if you have to do that, then you know that would be something to think about. So let's talk a little bit about the oaths. Okay, were oaths to heighten the swearer's obligation to tell the truth? Were oaths? Here's the question for you: to heighten the swearer's obligation to tell the truth? Okay, that's a yes or no. What do you think?
Yes.
You think yes? Okay. All right. All right. Anybody else want to go the no way? Yes or no? Okay. I'm glad. See, Tracy's bold. That's good. Okay.
I'm willing to be wrong.
Okay. Let's answer it like this. Hebrews 6:13 through 18. So if you want to flip over to Hebrews, again, let's look at our guide right here.
Hebrews 6.
Hebrews 6:13 through 18. Let's see what it says. And this is how this author applies it. Maybe it's misapplied. And, I can see the yes, I can see the no. So let's look here. I'm going to read Hebrews 13 through 18. I almost read the wrong one. All right, so starting verse 13. For he of whom these things are spoken belongs to another tribe from which no man has a... Wrong one. That was 7. Thank you. Okay, 13. For when God made a promise to Abraham, because he could swear by no one greater, he swore by himself, saying, surely blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply you. And so after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise. For men indeed swear by the greater, and an oath for confirmation is for them an end of all dispute. Thus God, determining to show more abundantly to the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed it by an oath, that by two immutable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we might have strong consolation, who have fled for refuge to lay hold of the hope set before us. So, going back to the question, were oaths to heighten the swearer's obligation to tell the truth? In this verse, I would venture to say, and you can say yes, but in this verse, I'm going to say no, but to give great assurance to whom receive God. Okay? So he just did that for comfort in this verse, and how we're talking about it. So, and that's in Hebrews, and the author was talking about, again, God cannot tell a lie. And that's in Titus. I think it's Titus in the first verse also. All right, so let's go here. What practical lessons can we learn from all this? Okay? God's concern is honesty in this situation. Total, absolute honesty. We owe our brothers and sisters truth in all our words, or no words at all. Okay? Think about this. Hatred, guilt, and covetousness move us to stretch the truth till snaps. Think about this. Selfishness or lust entreats us to break vows. Thoughtlessness prompts us to forget the promises we make to others. Okay, anybody want to add anything on? Here's what I like to do. Those are some negatives, aren't they? Let's turn those into positive. What can we do? God's concern is honesty. Okay, that's positive. We need to be honest. We owe our brothers and sisters truth in all our words. Okay, so I'd say that's positive. We could have said not tell a lie to them. Hatred, guilt, and covetousness move to us to stretch the truth till it snaps. So instead of hatred, we need to what? Show love. Okay. Selfishness, we need to be unselfish. We had verses earlier about lust, so what do we need to do? We need to look away. If it's lust of the eyes, look away. Don't go into that situation. Stay away from that. Thoughtlessness, well, be thoughtful. Be kind. All right, so let's end right here. Okay, can hardly read that one. I knew it's Titus 2:1. God cannot tell a lie. Honesty and truthfulness. So look at Colossians 3:9. Somebody read that. Somebody get there quick, Timmy, and I want to go to that next one, Ephesians. Who's got Colossians 3:9? You got it, Tracy?
Verse 9 says, "Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with his deeds."
Okay. So right there, what does that mean, put off the old man?
You were baptized, you're a new creator.
You start anew. Okay, that was your old self. Now it's time to live like a citizen of heaven. Okay, all right. Ephesians 4:15. Becky, can you read that one? You mind?
I'm not there.
Okay.
I think that should be Titus 1 verse 2.
Okay, yeah, I flipped it. Sorry about that.
Ephesians what?
Ephesians 4:15 and then verse 25.
But speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in all aspects unto Him who is the head, even Christ.
Okay, and then verse 25. If you read that one too.
Therefore, laying aside falsehood, speak truth, each one of you with his neighbor.
Okay.
For we are members of one another.
Do you ever notice people like to tell the truth sometimes when it gets the other person in trouble? At least when the people are little. Maybe some of you have grew up with brothers or sisters or have children, okay, or been around them. So I think we need to be careful of that when we know maybe something, again, talking about thoughtfulness. If you see a brother or sister in the wrong, aren't we supposed to be thoughtful if we approach them and have that pure heart and that attitude? So you don't want to do it because, ooh, this person always thinks they're right. I'm going to go tell that they're wrong. Okay, so we've got to be careful of that because we want to be a representative of the kingdom of heaven. We want to be a citizen there. So, ending on that, appreciate your time. Anybody have any other comments or questions? I did way too much talking. Okay.
You told the truth.
I told the truth because I tried to stick with the verses so I can tell the truth. That's always a smart play.
That is a smart play.
All right. We'll see y'all later. Thank you.